In episode 151 of the Peerless Tang Clan, Huo Yuhao is accused of betraying his country, and the level 97 Tianyang Douluo moves to execute him. The true identity of Crown Prince Xu Yunhan is finally exposed. The Body Douluo, Busi, risked his life to create a desperate opening, allowing Tianyang Douluo and the others to successfully abduct Xu Yunhan, the Crown Prince of the Sun Moon Empire. But when Huo Yuhao learned that they intended to use an innocent child as leverage against the Sun Moon Empire, he refused to accept it no matter what. What no one present knew was that this child shared a blood bond with Huo Yuhao. There was no way he could stand by and watch an innocent child become a sacrifice in a war created by adults. So even though he was surrounded by more than a dozen Titled Douluo, Huo Yuhao showed no intention of backing down. That very night, he and Tang Wutong quietly carried Xu Yunhan away, preparing to return him to the Sun Moon Empire. But Tianyang Douluo soon led a group of Titled Douluo to block their path. At first, Tianyang Douluo still tried to give Huo Yuhao a way out. He told him that as long as he left the child behind, everything that had happened before could be forgotten. He and Tang Wutong would be allowed to return safely to Shrek City. But Huo Yuhao's attitude was unusually firm. Today, he had to take the child away. No matter who stood in his path, he would not change his mind. Those words completely enraged Tianyang Douluo. He furiously demanded whether Huo Yuhao understood the weight of the word nation. Even if he had to bear eternal condemnation, he would not allow Huo Yuhao to succeed today. In Tianyang Douluo's eyes, Huo Yuhao was nothing more than a junior, yet he dared to speak such bold words in front of so many Titled Douluo. Tianyang Douluo attacked on the spot. This level 97 Super Douluo took one step forward, and his entire body instantly erupted with golden light like the rising sun. He raised his hand and grabbed toward Huo Yuhao through the air. A massive golden hand condensed from terrifying heat appeared out of nowhere and descended straight toward Huo Yuhao's head. The surrounding air twisted and warped under the heat. What was most terrifying was that this blazing temperature was completely locked around Huo Yuhao's body. Not even the slightest trace of heat leaked outward. Just from that level of soul power control, everyone could tell how terrifying this Super Douluo truly was. But facing such an earth-shattering strike, Huo Yuhao did not dodge at all. He stepped forward with his left foot and slowly pushed his right palm out from his chest. His movement did not seem fast, but the moment he pushed out that palm, the expressions of every Titled Douluo present changed. Because everyone could clearly sense that the force behind Huo Yuhao's palm was like an ancient glacier slowly moving forward. The intensity of his aura was not inferior to Tianyang Douluo's at all. The person most shocked was Tianyang Douluo himself. He had always believed that he had already estimated Huo Yuhao's strength highly enough. But only after truly exchanging blows did he realize that he had still underestimated this young man. Although Tianyang Douluo had not used his full strength in that strike, the fact that Huo Yuhao could take it head-on meant that he already had the confidence to confront him directly. At the level of a Super Douluo, every single rank brought a massive difference in power. To withstand that attack, one would need combat strength of at least level 95 or above. Among all the Titled Douluo present, only a few could have done that. Even Huo Yuhao's biological father, the White Tiger Duke, could hardly believe it. In just 2 short years, Huo Yuhao's strength had grown to such a terrifying degree. In terms of direct combat power alone, Huo Yuhao was already no weaker than an ordinary Titled Douluo. And beside him was Tang Wutong, who had also reached the Titled Douluo level and could support him. When the two joined forces, their combat power had already touched the threshold of a Super Douluo. Back when Shrek Academy gave them their graduation assessment, one of the tasks was to escape intact from the hands of the level 97 Yen Xiaozhe. Tianyang Douluo's strength and martial soul mastery were not even comparable to Yen Xiaozhe's. So Huo Yuhao being able to block this attack was not actually surprising. After his strike was broken, Tianyang Douluo completely lost face. His figure flashed backward, creating distance. A dazzling mass of sunlight lit up above his head, and countless thin beams of golden light shot toward Huo Yuhao like arrows. This was one of Tianyang Douluo's proudest soul skills. Huo Yuhao still stood where he was without moving. The palm he had pushed out earlier slowly lifted. His palm was already covered in diamond-like ice crystals. Tianyang Douluo's martial soul was a fire attribute sun. Although its quality was not low, it still had not reached the level of ultimate fire. Huo Yuhao's ultimate ice naturally restrained all fire attribute martial souls. Since the quality of Tianyang Douluo's attribute was inferior to his own, that restraining effect became even more obvious. Immediately afterward, the soul spirit behind Huo Yuhao changed again. The figure of the Ice Bear King, Xiao Bai, appeared. An ice-blue sphere of light shot into the sky with Huo Yuhao at its center. This was his 8th soul skill, Ice Meteor. Huo Yuhao understood the situation better than anyone. There were more than a dozen titled Douluo in front of him, and among them were 5 super Douluo. If he and Tang Wutong tried to fight them head-on, there was no chance they could win. Since a direct clash would not work, he could only win by surprise. First, he had to draw away Tianyang Douluo, the strongest person present, and then look for a chance to break through. As long as he could create enough distance, then with his top-tier concealment abilities, even if the enemy had several times more people, they would still be unable to track him down. That was why he used one of his strongest hidden cards right from the start. When Ice Meteor first appeared, it was only an ice sphere 1 meter in diameter. It looked completely ordinary. But as it rose into the air, its size expanded rapidly, and the violent ice aura inside it surged crazily. The golden light Tianyang Douluo released struck the ice sphere and was instantly erased, failing to cause even the slightest ripple. Tianyang Douluo's expression changed. It was already too late for him to use a stronger soul skill. He could only press both palms downward, intending to rely on his overwhelming strength to take the attack head-on. But the moment his palms struck Ice Meteor, something unexpected happened. The ice sphere did not explode, nor did it release destructive force. Instead, it seemed as if it had been coated with a layer of powerful adhesive, firmly sticking to Tianyang Douluo's palms. Before he could break free, a terrifying force erupted from the ice sphere. It was not attacking him. It was dragging him away at extreme speed. The titled Douluo present could only watch as that ice meteor carried the level 97 Tianyang Douluo away like a flash of lightning, disappearing from sight in an instant. In just 2 exchanges, Huo Yuhao had forcibly removed the strongest person present from the battlefield, making it temporarily impossible for him to take part in the next fight. Before anyone could react, Huo Yuhao's right hand was still raised high. The soul spirit behind him changed again, this time into the Snow Empress. The Snow Empress, dressed in a white gown, spread her arms. A powerful dark blue pillar of light shot into the sky. Snowflakes filled the air, and in an instant, the snowy dance of ultimate ice domain formed, enveloping all the titled Douluo present. Yet it did not affect the tents behind them at all. Just like how Tianyang Douluo had precisely controlled his high temperature earlier, Huo Yuhao's domain accurately trapped every titled Douluo while cutting off all spiritual detection. Everyone instantly lost track of Huo Yuhao. Then, the eye of destiny on Huo Yuhao's forehead lit up. 2 beams of golden light fell upon him and Tang Wutong, granting both of them the blessing of fate. Huo Yuhao took Tang Wutong's hand, and the two embraced in an instant. Their martial soul fusion skill erupted. A golden road, 30 meters wide and seemingly stretching all the way to the horizon, suddenly appeared. 5 titled Douluo were caught within the golden light, including 1 super Douluo. Those struck by it felt as if their entire bodies had fallen into a furnace. Their martial souls instantly collapsed, their soul skills completely failed, and their bodies froze in place, unable to move. Before the others could rush in to rescue them, the second martial soul fusion skill, Heartstorm, followed immediately. A massive purple dragon with butterfly wings charged straight along the golden road. Countless small golden hammers scattered in every direction. The titled Douluo rushing forward felt as though their heads had been smashed by heavy hammers. One by one, they stood frozen in a daze. They could only watch as that purple figure shot away like lightning. None of them could give chase. By the time the blizzard finally dispersed, all that remained were a group of stunned titled Douluo standing in place. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong had long since disappeared. Not long after, Tianyang Douluo returned in a miserable state. A titled Douluo from the Douling Empire asked whether they should pursue them. Tianyang Douluo stared at the fading traces of the golden road in the distance. His expression shifted uncertainly for a long while before he finally said that the objective of this operation had only been to assassinate Su Tianran. Now that Du Busi had exchanged his life to severely wound Su Tianran, and everyone had returned safely, the matter would end here. Tianyang Douluo sighed with emotion. If he had known Huo Yuhao possessed such strength, then back then, if everyone had focused all their firepower on attacking Su Tianran, perhaps they truly might have succeeded in killing him. Beside him, Shattered Star Douluo could only smile bitterly. He said that even if someone had told him such a thing earlier, he definitely would not have believed it. In the end, Tianyang Douluo did not want to stay even one more second. Taking advantage of the night, he hurriedly left with the Titled Douluo of the Douling Empire. Within a few days, this incident spread throughout the entire Douluo continent. Because of it, the Sun Moon Empire began mobilizing troops on a massive scale. The entire continent became shrouded beneath the dark clouds of an approaching war. A great battle that would sweep across the whole continent was already close at hand. Meanwhile, in the imperial palace of the Sun Moon Empire, ever since her son Xu Yunhan had been abducted, all of Zhu Zi's strength had shattered into dust. Inside her bedchamber, she repeatedly stroked the child's little clothes. Large tears fell onto the fabric. From the preview images, Zhu Zi could be seen holding clothes shaped like the Sky Dream iceworm. This design was meant to subtly hint at the blood relationship between Xu Yunhan and Huo Yuhao. The Sky Dream iceworm was Huo Yuhao's first soul spirit and also one of the most important companions of his life. Using this iconic element to represent the bond between father and son carried a stronger sense of fate than stating it directly. At that moment, Zhu Zi kept murmuring her son's name. Even though she was a war goddess who commanded heavy military power, even though she was the lofty empress of the empire, in the moment she lost her child, she was nothing more than a desperate mother. She could not find anyone who could help her. What chilled her even more was that Emperor Su Tianran was completely unwilling to compromise for the sake of the child. No matter how high her position in the military was, she could not overcome this cold-blooded emperor. She hated Su Tianran's heartlessness. She hated even more those who used an infant as a bargaining chip in war. She even swore in her heart that if anything happened to her son, she would drag everyone down with her. Just as she stood on the verge of collapse, a familiar and gentle voice suddenly sounded within her heavily guarded bedchamber. Zhu Zi's nerves instantly tightened. She immediately put on her armor and entered a battle-ready state. But when the other person spoke again, her entire body froze in place. The person who had come was actually Huo Yuhao. She could not believe it no matter what. This man, who should have belonged to the enemy camp, had silently entered the Sun Moon Imperial Palace at such a time. Suppressing the turbulent emotions in her heart, she sternly dismissed all the maids. The moment the door closed, the figures of Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong appeared from the air. What broke Zhu Zi's defenses completely was the child in Huo Yuhao's arms. It was the son she had been thinking about day and night, Xu Yunhan. Zhu Zi rushed over like a madwoman, tightly holding the child in her arms as she burst into tears. These 2 days had felt longer than 2 centuries to her. She had never dreamed that the person who would safely bring her child back would be Huo Yuhao. The considerate Tang Wutong quietly withdrew to the outer room, leaving enough space for the two of them to talk. Huo Yuhao said that the grudges of war should never involve children. When he was young, he had lost his own mother, so he understood that pain too well. That was why he had done everything he could to bring the child back. He did not ask for anything in return. Even if the two of them were destined to be enemies on the battlefield, he would never use a child as a threat. Zhu Zi could no longer hold herself together. She finally asked the question that had been buried in her heart for many years. If, back then, she had let go of her hatred and left with Huo Yuhao, would everything have ended differently? Crying, she said she regretted it. Only after losing her child did she understand that hatred had never been the most important thing in her life. She held Huo Yuhao and kept apologizing. But in this world, there has never been a road back to the past. What made the scene even more heartbreaking was that little Yunhan called Huo Yuhao "Daddy" in his soft childish voice. Huo Yuhao hesitated, then held the child in his arms. His eyes were filled with tenderness that could not be dissolved. Zhu Zi watched this scene, and her tears fell even harder. She opened her mouth, But in the end, she still did not reveal the child's true identity in front of Huo Yuhao. Huo Yuhao and Tang Wutong quietly left the palace. Only after they were gone did Zhu Zi softly say that he was actually Huo Yuhao's child. Back then, in the extreme north, Zhu Zi had secretly kept Huo Yuhao's bloodline and gave birth to Xu Yunhan alone. Huo Yuhao risking his life to send the child back was never an act of collusion with the enemy or betrayal of his country. He simply did not want his own child to repeat the tragedy of his childhood and lose his mother. He did not want an innocent infant to die in the schemes of adults and the cruelty of war. On the return journey, Tang Wutong said with her mouth that she was not jealous, yet she still spoke to Huo Yuhao in a proud, spoiled tone. She said that in the future, she would give birth to their own child, and Huo Yuhao absolutely had to love her the most. Seeing Tang Wutong acting so playfully willful, Huo Yuhao could not help laughing. Tang Wutong was still worried that once they returned, they would be branded as traitors who had colluded with the enemy. But Huo Yuhao had already made his own judgment. He knew very well that those Titled Douluo were already ashamed of using an infant as a bargaining chip. On top of that, the war to come would still require his abilities. In the end, this matter would most likely be left unresolved. The two continued flying toward the Mingdo mountain range. After returning to the camp, Huo Yuhao met the White Tiger Duke. The White Tiger Duke angrily scolded him, asking how he still dared to come back. What Huo Yuhao had done was already an act of treason. But he did not know the truth. Huo Yuhao simply did not want an innocent child to repeat the tragedy of his own childhood. He simply did not want this already cruel war to become even more filthy and disgraceful. Even if he had to bear everyone's misunderstanding, even if he had to stand against the entire continent, he would still refuse to abandon his bottom line.